Yes. Quick run through the agenda for this presentation, at least. First, a high-level overview of web components and Polymer, what they are and how to use them. And then, as Balázs said, he's going to show you some components that exist today and how you do them and how you use them. And then finally go into how you can help out and join the revolution and make it revolutionized even more. So, web components. It's easier if you just look at this as if we describe the problems we're having today. There are many problems. There are many frameworks today trying to solve our problems on the web. We have Angular, Backbone, Ember, etc. And all of these exist for a reason. People or developers like us feel there's a lack of tool chain that we need to do whatever it is we want to do. And that's basically lacking from the web platform, the native web platform. We lack the possibility for composition and reusability of components. And web apps today basically look like this, not design-wise, but they have to adjust themselves, be responsive for many different form factors and screen sizes and input types like touch and screen and click and I don't know, sneeze maybe. You have the watch down there, it's very small. I mean, it's a big difference. And the tools we have today on the web doesn't really cope with that. Of course, you can solve it, but it's quite cumbersome. So, an example. I'm sure many of you have done UI tabs many times. And if you're like me, it's never really fun. And it's not easy. It's actually kind of hard to get it good looking and have a good code behind it. This is one way. If you're using like jQuery UI or Foundation or Backbone or not Backbone, but well, any framework. Basically, this is markup, and then you have mix in some JavaScript to fix the problem with tabs, and you have some that try to use pure markup, JavaScript, sorry. And then some just go crazy. They're basically solving the same problem, but in very different ways. We, as web developers, we have to learn new frameworks anytime we want to build tabs and we get stuck in a project with some type of framework. And the bad thing is we have here 4 solutions for UI tabs, and they aren't compatible. If you build something in Backbone, you can't use it in Angular. If you build it in Ember, you can't use it in native JavaScript. I mean, you're stuck with that platform or that tool chain. This is where web components come in. Basically, you create your own HTML elements, which are more describable or descriptive. The name says it all. It's plural, so it's a bunch of tabs. And here you have 3 tabs. And if you want to add a new tab, you just know what to do. You just copy and paste that and add a new one. It's no harder. You don't need to look into JavaScript and figure out if it's lost child in CSS or whatever. And the good thing is you can use this in any project because it's the native web platform we're using. It's going to be reusable. So, how did we come here? Why did web components arrive? Well, basically, the different web browser makers today saw a problem, and they got together and talked about this and figured out that there are some common problems people are facing today while developing web apps, such as templating, you have composition, you have scoping and encapsulations of code, and also you have resource management, like loading dependencies. So if we start off with custom elements, web components consist of 4 parts, and we're going to run through them now. One of them, custom elements. This is a way to create your custom HTML and DOM elements, and the problem it tries to solve is this. I think you've seen this yourself. This is Gmail. It's a very famous app, or rather it's known. And it looks like this if you look at it in the DevTools. And it's kind of horrible. It's not the fault of Gmail, of course, but it's the fault of the web platform we have today. The markup we had does just not cope with the needs of creating an application like this. So custom elements is more declarative. It's readable, as I said before. You pretty easily see what it's supposed to do by the naming. And here you have an attribute called selected, and it's pretty easy to see what that does too. It's very descriptive. And the good thing is, if you're a new developer on a project and they're using web components, I mean, you know this code. You know how to interpret the markup and how it's written. There's no JavaScript APIs for frameworks you don't know before that you need to read through to understand how to add a tab, or anything basically. And a good thing is that you can extend custom elements or native elements also, and just build upon other people's components, and build and extend native components too, which is very cool. So, and if you want to use this in JavaScript, you just do a document query selector as usual. You add an event listener, listen to the events defined on the custom element, and I mean, you've done this for many years now, so you know how to do it. It's the same API as you normally use. And that's very good. Templates is the second part of web components. It's native, client-side templating for the first time in the browser, native. And this is basically how it looks. You have a template tag, and all the content within that tag is inert, meaning if you have image tags or script tags or whatever, it's not executed. It's not parsed. It's just text. Or actually, it's not text. It's still DOM elements, but it doesn't do any HTTP requests. It doesn't execute the JavaScript. So it's really good. And it's actual DOM. You can manipulate this with JavaScript if you need. The third part is the shadow DOM, which is kind of cool, and it sounds kind of cool, and it is kind of cool. So the shadow DOM is like a bubble that exists within your document. The CSS and the markup you have and JavaScript within that bubble, it only affects that bubble. It doesn't affect the things outside of the bubble, and things outside of the bubble can't destroy things within the bubble. There's a barrier there, which is very good. And you've actually been using this for quite some time now. You just maybe didn't know it. This is a video tag, and you add a source to a video file, and there's a video showing up. And then you add this controls attribute, and suddenly you have this little nice arrow and this tracker, or whatever you call it, progress bar for the time, and some mute buttons and stuff. And that's actually shadow DOM. And it looks like this. If you open this and inspect a video tag in DevTools today, if you have enabled in DevTools, in the settings for DevTools, to show user agent shadow roots or shadow DOM, then you can see it like this up here. You have beneath the video tag, you have a shadow root kind of element, or a node at least, and beneath that you just have simple divs and inputs and stuff that, in this case, Google has styled accordingly in their browser, and it's just hidden for you. And whatever they style in there won't affect your styles in your page, and whatever you style doesn't affect how this video element looks. So it's really cool. It's composed. And finally, the fourth part is HTML imports. That's how we load stuff, how we load components, and how we load external markup, and therefore JavaScript and links and to CSS style sheets. And this is actually going to fundamentally change how we work with dependencies on the web. That's what I think, at least, because it's really easy to handle dependencies. But I'm going to show you instead. This is a Bootstrap inclusion thing. You add a bunch of CSS. The order is, of course, important. And you add jQuery because your Bootstrap depends on that. And you have to add jQuery before Bootstrap. And then you add the extra tooling for Bootstrap. And you have to do that all yourself. And with web components, it becomes this. A link tag with a rel attribute of import, and just specify an HTML tags that does all the definitions of whatever the dependencies are. And you don't have to create the dependency chain. The author of the component does that. One concern many people have then is, okay, I include an HTML file. Good. But it includes like several JavaScript files, several link tags to style sheets and stuff, and different other components maybe. And you have a full chain of many dependencies. And we're used to minify and concatenating scripts and CSS files and stuff today. And well, there is a solution for this, and it's called Vulcanize. It's a node module available that Google and the Polymer team has created for actually concatenating all the stuff in your page. And it's very customizable. You can both use it as a node module within a node script and from the command line. And you can actually create from a full site a one single file only download, the HTML file from this. So there's one request for you. Okay, it's going to be big, so probably you don't want to do exactly that if it's not a very small site, but you can. And of course, if you're using Grunt or Gulp for your build toolchain, there's tools for that too. So, what do we have? Well, custom elements. Create custom elements and extend existing ones. You have templating, native templating, and you have the shadow DOM with a very cool scoped CSS and very componentized, well, whatever it's called, encapsulated markup. You have HTML imports that handles the dependency chain. So if I were to use this, how do I do? Well, the good thing is, since it's compatible, no matter what framework you're using on top of this, you can just go out and find some custom elements that people have done, and it's going to work for you. You don't have to do everything yourself. You don't have to download some API JavaScript thingy that connects to something. You just download the component definition and start using it as an element. And it's easy to find because you have many different sites like this, customelements.io, and there's a link to these sites in the gist on there later on. And you just use a package management like Bower to install the dependencies you have. You import it like this. Here we say we have a core toolbar we want to import and some icon button thingy. And it can look like this if you're going to use it. You add a toolbar, you add a button, you add a text and some other buttons. And it could look like this cool toolbar. And it actually does. So we have support for the full stack, these four parts of web components today in Chrome. It's shipped since version 36, I think. And in the other browsers, well, you have Opera. It's using Blink from Chrome, so it's a free one. Safari 8, I think it is, latest Safari, has support for templates native, and they have like branches for the other stuff that they're working on right now. Mozilla Firefox has templates, and they have in nightly versions of Firefox today support for the full stack. They haven't shipped it yet because they're ironing out some details. Yes?
You can actually flag it on.
Yes. Yeah. So just go into about config, right? And you can enable a flag, and it's going to be there. So it's kind of cool. In the stable one, yeah. So how do you get people to use this if it's not fully supported? Yeah, and IE, of course. Normal situation. The problem is they aren't very public with the information of their progress. They still label it as under consideration on their status page for development, but they are working on it and they are very enthusiastic of it. So very soon it's going to be support in the latest versions of all browsers. So yeah, I was a bit quick. How do you get people to use this when the situation looks like this? Google wanted to get feedback on Polymer and also for web components. Actually, the whole standardization track wanted to have feedback. So Google went and created Polymer, which is consisting of two things. Well, let's back up. This tool allows us to use web components today in the browser, which is very cool. And they support the last two versions of the browsers. So meaning IE10, it's Safari 6, and mobile Safari, and all the evergreen browsers, of course, which IE soon is gonna join. But as said, Polymer is two things. One thing is the polyfill for the web components. It's webcomponents.js. Previously, it was called platform.js. And if you are looking to examples of web components today, I'm sure you're going to see some references to platform.js, but it's nowadays webcomponents.js. And then they made this shift to clarify the fact that Polymer and the polyfills of web components are two separate things. You can use the web components, polyfills, and start using the native web components as they are without using Polymer. The second part is Polymer itself on top of web components. And I add syntactic sugar, and it just makes it a little bit easier to work with the quite cumbersome APIs we have today in the web components. You can, of course, do it, and it's kind of fun, but it's easier with Polymer. So, if you take Polymer into account, it looks like this. Kinda. I mean, they're kind of hard things to polyfill, and there are some comments in the code for the polyfills that says like, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to implement a full CSS parsing in JavaScript. We're not going to do that. So there are some pitfalls and gotchas, but I mean, if you know about them, you can absolutely work around them. And now, when we have support for these, we can start looking into how Polymer sugars the web component stuff. So first off, custom elements, sorry. If we were to create an element, I'm going to show you how to do it in plain JavaScript, meaning with web components API, then with Polymer, and then how to use it. Simple, document register element, give it a name of the element name, and then provide a prototype. And in this case, it's just a normal HTML element, and that's a normal case. One thing to notice is that there's a dash in the element name, and it's a mandatory thing. This is to support or rather future-proof the support for future versions of HTML. They're not going to add dashes in the names of new elements, but if you were to create this paper just a tabs element and HTML later on adds that, you're kind of out of luck. It's not going to work. And it's also just a signal that this is a custom element to users. So with Polymer, it becomes simpler. They went ahead and made it very meta. So they created a custom element that lets you create custom elements. And it's called Polymer element. You give it a name, paper tabs, and the Polymer toolchain just figures out the prototype that you're going to use. And you use it like this, as we saw before. And you can also interact with it, or rather create it with document create element as normally. So it's, yet again, it's the standard APIs you used to use. But I also mentioned that you can extend elements. So say if you want to create a super button, you could specify the prototype to be the button element prototype, and you specify that it extends the button tag name. And that's how you do it with web components. And it becomes easier with Polymer. Just add the extends attribute and specify button. And then when you use it, you actually use the base tag, and it says that it should be a super button instead. And you can create it with JavaScript too, and just specify a second attribute argument to create element. And this way you can actually retain or keep the accessibility point, because if you create custom elements, you have to, how do you keep the accessibility working? And if you're just extending native buttons and native inputs and native other elements, you have all that. It's already there. Otherwise, you have to add the hover and tabability and yeah, all that stuff. It's fun, not. So, templates. The web component way is just add a template tag and put some stuff in it, and you use JavaScript to fetch this tag and get the contents of it as a document fragment and just put it into the DOM somewhere, and you're going to have non-inert content. The Polymer way is that you create an element, you add the template tag, and everything in there is the template of that tag. So whenever you create a user list, you're going to get that automatically. And all these curlies, it's something that Polymer adds to. It's one-way or two-way bindings of variables, and you can do repeat things, and you have conditionals and stuff. So this is what you're used to if you're using Mustache or Angular or whatever templating framework you used to work with today. So that's kind of cool. And then we have Sugar. No, we have Shadow DOM. Sugar DOM. Pretty cool. Yes. How do you create it with web components? Well, you fetch an element and you say create shadow root, and there you have it. Just add some markup there, or use a template tag to just use a pen child and add it to the shadow root, and it's going to be there, just like the video tag. It's going to be hidden. And with Polymer, they say that anytime you create an element or instantiate an element, a Polymer element, it's going to automatically add it to the shadow DOM, or as a shadow DOM. It's implicit. And that's kind of cool because you get automatic encapsulation and stuff for free when using Polymer. So that's the high-level overview of web components and Polymer, and now it's time for details. Balázs?
Why, thank you. So, let's talk about components. Now that we have all these amazing new tools to build new elements, new markup, do magic, encapsulate, we can start thinking about how we can turn our regular web mentality into this componentized world. This is what we have today, right? We're trying to build complex apps out of, well, these tags. Are they really ready for that? What about if HTML looked more like this? Wouldn't that make more sense? That's more ready for an API complex application, right? Now you understand what's going on instantly. So, with all our experience of building mobile apps, well, we have years, almost a decade maybe, of building mobile apps and web apps and all sorts of things like that. How about we take all that knowledge and build a better HTML that supports our needs as developers of such applications? What if we started all over? Wouldn't you do something like this instead? Like this. Taking parts of what is currently native iOS toolkit and turn it into a web toolkit for yourself to make it easier to build applications instead of the toolkit we have today, which is meant for static pages. That's what it was originally designed for, right? It's decades old. It's not up to date with current technology. Polymer team has already set off basically to create two sets of elements for us. The first set would be the core elements. They are basically the scaffolding for applications, general purpose foundation, utility elements, all sorts of things like a basic container for toolbar. It's very easy to start with. That's why this presentation starts with it too. And can you guess what it's for? Well, obviously a toolbar on top of your page, which starts off by, say, having a title in it. Or first you import it, obviously, sorry. But it's as easy as that. Now you have your toolbar ready. Then you want to add a title to it. So you put a div, put it with some text, and you have your title. But it's still not a toolbar, right? So you need maybe a button in there. So you include a core icon button, and now you have your famous, popular hamburger menu right there ready for you to use, with all the things that you expect it to do, with little effects, hover states, and all that. And of course, since this is now using web components and Polymer, it's shadow DOM, so stuff doesn't influence the rest of your page. This is encapsulated stuff. You can style it if you want, but it will not affect your page by default. Then there is a nice wrapper element, which you would normally put basically most of your page into, called the core header panel. And it's basically a simple container with two major functions. One is to create a header section in the top, where you put your toolbar basically, and a section for your content. And as I said, the main function of this is to control the scrolling of the page. So when the two put together, like nice app primitives, they work together like a charm and create this scrolling effect for you without the pain of doing all the JavaScript and caring about compatibility for different frameworks, networks, whatever. Just put them together, and because they're meant to be together, they work together. Ding-a-ding-a-ding. Yes. But it is a web component, so basically by adding a little bit of configuration, which of course the element itself provides for you, you can change its behavior. So now in scroll mode, all of your content scrolls instead of locking your toolbar at the top. Now in our current multi-device world, responsiveness is high priority, right? So there is this nice little element called core drawer panel, which gives you some responsiveness basically out of the box again. So first you create, first you set a drawer attribute on an element that you would like to be on the side, right? And then you add a main attribute on what will become your main content. Just like most websites start off looking like, or apps start off looking like. But then with this, you get the bonus effect of it being hidden on smaller screens, I mean the sidebar of course, and showing up when you want with the toggle menu, which you just added earlier on the toolbar. So working together like a charm again, like nice app primitives. and creating a sophisticated experience which would take, I don't know, a couple of pages of coding and CSS and some headaches. And here you just have some custom elements doing it for you. Now the second set of elements that Polymer team made for us is called paper elements. Has anybody met the material design UI that is the Google is famous for now? What? One hand? Seriously? What is it? Android 5? Everything is looking like that? Come on. So yes, I expect more people have met that. And of course, it covers everything from their watches to TVs. It's everywhere, right? Well, Paper Elements is basically the web version of material design, coming to you live or straight from the Polymer team, giving you, for example, the paper input element, which is beautiful and has things built in like validation, error states. Just add some attributes and you're set. I mean, you know how much coding that takes for you in a regular JavaScript world. Cleverly done. Looks like your your material design with a floating label. Very trendy, very cool. Makes me regret I'm on iOS actually, but very nice anyway. Typical checkbox, also looking very material designy. This is actually not completely up to date, but that just goes to show you how much things are changing in Polymer and basically this new trendy spec. I checked out their demo on the site, and it's actually a bit different now because some people had some usability concerns regarding the check state. It doesn't look like it's interactive. But on the other hand, it does have this very nice touch effect when you hit the checkbox. A usability bonus definitely, because normally when you're touching on a screen, you don't see anything from your finger. So this way you get the interaction bubble showing you that this is where you touched, and you actually touched, we noticed. And this touch ripple effect is actually encapsulated in a separate element. Since they're using it in so many places, it seemed easier to make such an element, and you can put it behind anything, anywhere, and you have this nice effect happening for you for free. Yes, it's just simple drag and drop, giving you a visual punch. Paper shadow, giving you a bit of spatial feeling about how things are ordered within your page. I guess since you, all of you have met material design basically, you've seen this happening, and now you have it in the web as well. Just change the z-index, add an animate attribute, and it looks exactly like material design on the web for you. Yes. So now that we've talked a bit about material and what that looks like, so what can I do to change the styles? After all, we talked about encapsulation, right? So I can't touch that CSS? Well, of course you can. It's just that you shouldn't by accident, basically. Things shouldn't leak unwantedly. But if you want to change that knob on the slider, then you can use something like the shadow pseudo element and define what you want to change behind it. But this makes sure it's intentional, not accidental, right? And if you want to change something all over the site, for example, then you can use this deep combinator, which will pierce all shadow boundaries. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, this one only goes one level and one element, basically. So I'm only piercing the barrier between the paper slider and what's inside of it. But if this is inside something else, inside something else, inside something else, and you want to change every background color, then you need something like deep, because that will change, for example, the ripple effect of every element on the page, right? Otherwise, you will only change it for one specific element. Now, Eric Beidelman created this nice material effect playground, and actually demonstrates for you how with a simple toggle you can change the theming using shadow and deep selectors. Very nice. I suggest you play around. I did too, changing it to orange because that wasn't part of their game, and it worked very nicely. Yeah, so people might ask, what can you do with this stuff? Well, for example, they made this demo app that takes web components, Polymer, the whole shebang thrown together into a nice little application. And here it's actually doing something. And it is very nice. Has anybody tried this demo? No? I totally recommend you do, because it shows the performance. I mean, this is a rather complex example rather than a bunch of elements solo dancing on your page. And it my phone definitely works smooth, and even though it has only support for templates, not the rest of the Shadow DOM, and it's very nice. So I say it's powerful already. But obviously, we just barely scraped the surface of what elements already exist out there. So I recommend you check out the Polymer project homepage. They have both the paper elements and the core elements all listed up there to fiddle around with. But before you think this is all Google and Polymer, well, no. There are other browser vendors working on their own elements. Take, for example, our friends at Mozilla. They created something called a Brick. And they have a Brick app bar, a Brick deck, a Brick tab bar. Looking very familiar, right? Now you might still think, well, okay, this means that now there's a Brick version, and now there's a Polymer version, so I have to pick which one I want to use. No, because the common language is web components, so they can all work together, create an app that actually has a core icon, an Instagram X tag, which is basically, I think that's native, vanilla web components, and then build something that's Brick, Polymer, and native web components turning into one single application. No problem. The common language is the native web, so they all work together like a charm. And there's a ton of browser users also making elements, not just browser vendors. So here's an example created by Eric Ringsmuth, which is a common need for all applications, a router. And just like you did with to include custom elements, here you basically have an HTML import which points to the section of the page you want to load in such a certain path. Hash change and HTML5 push states, you know, all that stuff ready for you. Or there's Adios Manis pager, which takes care of the paging for you. Very cool, out of the box. Everybody hates pages, right? They've been with us since good old PHP days, and they're still with us, and they're going to be with us for the rest of eternity. So make them easy. Have a tag. Or Ajax forms. We've been doing it since Ajax became a thing, and now you can just have an element that takes care of basically all of the Ajax action for you, the same way you do a regular form, but instead it's all captured and handled for you. Any elements you have with a name attribute and a value will be parsed and sent, including custom elements, of course. And if you build your custom elements right, which you should, then they have the same APIs as native, and therefore it talks with any regular form, or in this case, an Ajax form. What about apps? Anybody done any apps? Well, an app is this site. It's also built on web components in Polymer. Or this site, the Chromium dashboard. It's also using already web components in Polymer. They're not little, huge designer tool, which basically allows you to drag and drop web components and Polymer elements together, build an application, play around, and you can even export it later on to make something serious out of it. Did you know that GitHub is using web components already? All the little timestamps that say a day ago or 15 minutes ago or whatever, that's already web components. It's a custom time tag. Hello. Yeah, that does it for you. They have the date stamp in it, and it renders the right time. But it's not just Google. There's also what are they? Salesforce. Sorry. And they are turning all of their APIs basically into custom elements, so you don't have to have all the boilerplate code every time. You just grab an element, import it, and you're ready to use their API. Talking of which, and this is a bit of a mind bender at first, how about turning APIs into elements? It's kind of weird, right, at first, but how about this? You know how much code it takes to do a Google Map pointer? How many have actually put a Google Map pointer in a page? Yeah. Was it fun? Could you do it out of your head without looking at examples? Yeah, so it's something like that, in quantity anyways. How about that for a Google Map? You basically declare a map, you put on some longitude and latitude, maybe you add a zoom attribute, and you have your map rendered as you want. Basically, practically no JavaScript, tiny CSS, maybe two define how big you want your map, but that's it. Just like a normal element, an image tag, whatever. You have your Google Maps right there. And all the complex APIs are handled for you. So we mentioned we want to add a marker, right? So it's going to be like what, JavaScript something equals something. Oh wait, how about that? There it is. It's just another element, right? Easy. And HTML already has these properties like draggable, so why not implement it here? And suddenly your pointer is draggable on the map. Easy as pie. Now Google has over, 250 APIs, so they're starting to put elements around many of them, making it as easy as Google Maps. But Google Maps is their flagship, obviously. That's the best supported, most recent, up-to-date, coolest. But they're working on the rest. They have something called Google Web Components on GitHub. So if you want to check out what they already have done, go there, and they include calendar, spreadsheets, Street View, all this stuff. Actually, Eric Beidelman covers this in detail in his video. In case you want to focus on Google APIs, then I recommend you check out this video. The links will be in the show notes or something. I don't think we put this link in there, but
no, we didn't.
Maybe we should later on. So what do you feel? You want to get into doing web components? Doesn't it look like a better web? The way forward? Absolutely, I think so. So what do we do? Step one is obviously learn, because this is a new technology. We have to learn, but not only you have to learn as in somebody new to it, but also the technology has to learn from the users, which is why feedback is so important. One good place to start is obviously Web Components.org. It's like the nexus or the central hub for everything web components, all the different frameworks for it, browser support, a bunch of sites for custom elements, it's all there. And actually Polymer and basically Google guys gave the rights to the web components polyfill over to these guys, so now they're maintaining it. Well, everybody, it's open. So they're maintaining it, it's not Google owned anymore. Obviously you want to head over to the Polymer project to learn about this specific wrapper or library using web components. And this site actually contains the material which we'll be using later on for our code labs. And maybe you want to go there for some ideas for the hackathon in the afternoon, right? Yes, YouTube, great channel. Actually, I checked them out, obviously. It was part of our preparation to check out all the Polycast videos on YouTube. I totally recommend if you want to keep up to date. They have, what is it, maybe a monthly, maybe a 2-weekly show.
It's more often actually,
more
2
often.
weeks. Yeah, there's like 9 shows there now.
Exactly. They had a bit of a break now after the holidays, but they have plenty already up there. And they usually take an element or maybe some concept and show you how it's implemented, and then show you a real demo example of how to use something. So it's very handy. And I think the reason they're taking a break right now is because they're jumping the numbers. So the recent version of Polymer, if you like use Bower or something to pull it down or check it out on GitHub, it's like 054. But if you look at the tags on the dropdown, it's already, they're jumping towards 8. And 8 is they're basically getting ready for production track. So up until 5, it's just experimenting, playing with the thing, but now they're going forward. And in Q1, they're planning...
09.
Oh yeah, Q1 is 09, which is basically the alpha. And then Q2, they're planning for the 1.0. So it's coming fast. It's time to play. The next way to get into it, obviously, is build stuff. Get your hands dirty, do things. So step one, maybe if you're a Yeoman guy, is you use a generator, a Polymer generator, which adds all the usual SAS, PageSpeed, Mocha, whatever, the usuals. Or if you're not into that, then you can grab the seed element from GitHub and start hacking on that. It will contain a lot of stuff that you might not need for your particular case, but it will make sure that you have every angle, and then you just delete the things you don't need. It is kind of a full seed element. It's not exactly your single tag, but that's the point. You learn exactly all the APIs, what you can do. Yes, grab it here. Adi Osmani put together a very nice video explaining what to do with the first element, but also how to then publish it later on, which is important, since if you build something cool, why not share it with the world, put it up on Bower, and it will show up on the custom elements page, and that will come later. But first, there is an editor for you built into Chrome. Well, not built into Chrome, but as a Chrome extension. which has all the things ready for you to roll. You pick a new project, you start building with Polymer, different versions, different endpoints, like you want to build a custom app only, or a custom element only, or you want to build a whole app. It's all ready for you to roll. It has Bower, installs, updates, everything built into it, so ready for development. If you don't have a favorite editor, or if you're not like desperately wanting to focus on your single favorite editor, you're welcome to check this out. I played with it a little bit too. Yes, and definitely share everything you build. So this is, as I mentioned, a registry where things will show up. It's the npm for now of custom elements. And if you want to put something up there, you basically extend your Bower JSON and put the keyword web components. And then when you publish to Bower, it will automatically show up here, ready for the world to search it, use it, play with it. Yeah. Now it's time to explore. Have an open mind, play, and don't forget, tell us everything you find and build something awesome. And thank you.